boy, guys. We had an extremely important episode of Classroom of the Elite today. So much so that I almost changed the format of this video to just talk about one specific scene and really break it down. But I thought better of it because this episode is the definition of setup, if you really think about it. If you know the series, you see all the little things they've thrown in that perfectly set up the next season. There's so many things. Like almost every scene in this episode is set up for what's to come next. So I thought, let's break it all down. Let's talk about it. So let's just get into it and talk about Classroom of the Elite Season 2, Episode 10 today. So our episode begins with the Ayanokoji group just sitting around talking about the paper shuffle. About how they're glad that no one got expelled with it, which no one did, actually. They were able to avoid people getting expelled, which is a good thing. But then all of a sudden, they notice a very interesting pairing. They notice Ichinose and Saki and Nagi actually walking together. And they think it's kind of weird, because the leaders of the two top classes, of the Class A and B, getting along together like they're friends. It's kind of strange if you think about it, and you look at it from a third party's point of view. And then they comment on Ichinose a bit that, yeah, that's just her. She can get along with anyone. But then Haruka actually mentions that it's kind of unnerving a little bit. How someone just seems so perfect to the point that it's kind of scary a bit, you know what I mean? That's how Haruka feels talking about Ichinose. About how she just seems too perfect at everything. This scene right here is setting up quite an interesting scene from the next season. Like I said, set up galore in this episode. We'll get into that then, but just know everything's got meaning. We'll come back to this scene eventually. But you know, they drop that topic for right now. And they just start chatting, but Ayanokoji notices someone's watching him in the shadows. And it's here after he notices someone's watching him that we transition over to Kei a bit, as we see that she's in the same area too, also watching, as she gets a text from Ayanokoji. Now let's talk about Kei a little bit, because we transition to a scene with her and Sato walking. Just walking around, talking, shooting the breeze, you know, and all of a sudden she notices that she's getting followed by someone from Class C. Now, as you would expect, it's kind of a nervous situation. She knows it's happening, but she can't really do much about it. So, she just has to ignore it for now. But we transition to her having a phone call with Ayanokoji that night. Now, during this phone call, she informs Ayanokoji that, yeah, I'm getting tailed by someone from Class C. Like, what? You got any advice for me? And he tells her that, don't worry about that right now. It's fine. Don't worry about that. And they start talking about the situation earlier because it turns out that Ayanokoji actually had Kei overseeing his meeting with the Ayanokoji group in a way. Because he knows he was getting followed by someone. So he had Kei do a little bit of following back. And she tells him that, yeah, it's a Class A student, a female actually, that's been following you around recently. And she tries to ask him about that. Like, why would a Class A student be following you around? But he abruptly hangs up. And he says to himself, like, it's probably on Saki and Nagi's orders. And let's talk about that real quick, because there's a very important scene that they have not shown in the anime, actually. That was supposed to happen right after the end of the sports festival. And they have not done that scene yet. Now, I believe that scene is going to happen at the end of the season. Because it honestly makes sense for them to do that, but it would give much more context as to why Saki Nagi is interested in him. But I just wanted to mention that, because I still think it's strange that they didn't add that yet, but it's definitely worth noting. So keep that in mind as we move forward. And it's here we transition to a scene in the classroom where Pseudo reveals to the class that, you know, Class C has been harassing me lately too, showcasing that Class C is harassing a lot of people in Class D actually. And Horikita turns to Ayanokoji and tells him, yeah, they're starting to become more active lately. You know why that's happening, right? And of course he tries to feign ignorance like he always does. Like, no, why? And she tells him it's because they're trying to find the mastermind in this classroom. And Ayanokoji, of course, tries to play it off like, oh, he's trying to find you, right? And she says that lie's not going to work anymore. Because we all know who the real mastermind is in the class. He's been hiding himself very thoroughly, but Ryun is quickly closing in. He's starting to deduce who it is. Ayanokoji's already on his list of people, as we saw in our previous episode. So he has a very good idea who it might be already, but he's not quite sure. Horikita asked him what he's going to do in this situation. Like, how are you going to handle this? What are you going to do about him? And he says he doesn't know. And for now, that's all we can really do is leave it at that until Ryun makes his move. He will soon. But it's here that we get a scene which is really just an excuse to get Ayanokoji to the library. Where Horikita says, yeah, take my library book back. You know, you wanted to check this out anyway, so go take it back for me. Then you can take it out. If you don't, I don't know when a very illustrious, like, very requested book like this will get taken, so you might as well go take it back for me. And Ayanokoji's like, fine, I'll go do that. And it's here we transition to the library, where Ayanokoji meets a personal favorite character of mine. So as Ayanokoji's going through the library, he actually sees a female student struggling to get a book off the top shelf. So, you know, as a Giga Chad would, he goes and he helps her and gets it for her. And it's here that we get, I guess you could say, reintroduced to Shina Hiyori. Now, as I mentioned in last week's episode when she was introduced, that she's actually a pretty important character moving forward. She is essentially the second in command for Class C. So imagine that Ryun is the leader of the class. She is undoubtedly second in command. So quite an important character actually moving forward. And they start talking with each other and come to realize that, oh, they have a common interest in books together. And she seems quite delighted about that, actually, because she's got no one to talk about books with in Class C. So they kind of hit it off in a way, if you really think about it. And let's just say they kind of become book buddies with each other moving forward. Now, Ayanokoji asks her, like, should you really be talking to me right now? Your class is on kind of like a witch hunt for my class right now, and I'm one of the prime suspects. And she tells him, don't worry about that. I'm not interested in the fighting. She likes to take a more passive approach. She wants everyone to get along. And they kind of part ways in this situation. And it's here that Sai, Shibashira Sensei, actually approaches him and says, come with me. This is very important. And it's here we get into the real meat and potatoes of our episode. She takes Ayanokoji to the reception room. And it's here that she says, I've brought your son. And we get introduced to Ayanokoji's father. Now, this is by no means a happy reunion whatsoever. And his father starts the conversation off by saying, a man died because of you. And he gets into it. And he starts talking about Matsuo, who was a butler that, I guess you could say, took care of Ayanokoji when he was younger. And I kind of have to explain some stuff that the anime doesn't explain. Because his father tells him that he helped you to escape me. Because Matsuo was the one that told Ayanokoji about this school and helped him get out of the White Room to enroll into this school. He is really the reason why Ayanokoji was able to escape. And this school, why his father wants him to leave so badly, is because this school is different than other schools. This school is a safe place for Ayanokoji. As long as he's here, his father really cannot take him out. And that's what he wants. He wants to drag him back to the White Room no matter what. And he will do whatever it takes to make that happen. We will see that very soon. But to get back on the topic of Matsuo, though, he's the one that broke Ayanokoji out of there and told him about this school as a means of escaping his father. And he tells him that, you know, last month, he died in a fire that he set himself. Very likely story, I imagine. And he's trying to guilt trip Ayanokoji in this situation. Like, look what you've done. The man that helped you escape is dead, and you show no reaction whatsoever. He tells Ayanokoji that his son is now out in the cold on his own. One of the instances, or one of the things that happen when you try to defy me. And Ayanokoji tells him, do you really expect me to feel guilt over that? Because he knows. He knows what his dad did. That was no suicide. Let's say that much. And his father asked him, what inspired you to enroll in this school? What made you want to come here? And Ayanokoji tells him that, yes, the White Room is the ultimate education. People flat out just become superior here. That is why Ayanokoji is the way he is. The White Room, that's a topic for a whole nother video. But the White Room is a very special place. But it's because of that Ayanokoji took interest in the world outside of it. Because yes, you can get the ultimate education here. You can become just flat out superior to other people. But it's a sheltered area. You're not exposed to the world. And Ayanokoji was very curious about the world. He wanted to understand, like, you've said that the outside world, outside of the White Room, is unnecessary, worthless. I became curious and wanted to find out what that was all about. And that's why he decided to enroll in this school. His father tells him, there can be no path greater than the one that I made for you. Ayanokoji flat out tells him, I make my own path. And his father says, I've had enough of these games. And he gets to the crux of why he's here. And he hands him a letter of withdrawal from the school and demands him to sign it right then and here. He is determined to get him out of this school no matter what, like I said. And of course, Ayanokoji refuses to do that. Ayanokoji tells him flat out, the only place where your orders are absolute are within the White Room themselves. And his father tells him that the White Room is operating again. Because when Ayanokoji left, they stopped for a while. They shut down to try to look for him. And he tells him that we're back running again. And Ayanokoji asks him, like, what do you need me for then? If it's back up and running. And his father tells him, we've never had a specimen as good as you. You are my most prized possession. Really showcasing that he does not see him as a father whatsoever. He is a tool to him. He is his finest piece of art. His creme de la crop, I guess you could say. His absolute pinnacle of the White Room. And he wants him back no matter what. He doesn't even pretend to care about him as a son. And he tells him, this is your final warning. Sign these papers now. You are in no position to fight back. And as the situation's at its tensest moment, we get the arrival of the chairman of the school. And it's quite an interesting situation, actually, because the chairman and his father know each other quite well, actually. The chairman was his secretary for 8 years. And he reveals his name is Sakayanagi. And Ayanokoji's father tells him, well, if a parent asks for a student to get withdrawn, isn't it the school's responsibility to do that? And Sakayanagi says, no, I don't think that's quite right. He tells him this school, at the very least, values a student's independence above everything else. And his father says, all right, well, how did someone who wasn't meant to come to this school recommend it in the first place? I know that the interviews you do for this school are a sham. I know how you really administer people here. So why was my son, who wasn't supposed to be here now? And his father explains that he only got accepted here because someone did this in secret, behind my back, administered him. And without that, there's no way he would have been admitted to this school. And the chairman admits to that. He's like, maybe something like that happened. I was the one that personally wanted him to come here. I admitted him to come here. Now that he's a student, I have a responsibility to take care of him myself. And until he personally says himself that he wants to leave, I cannot permit him to leave. I cannot permit you to take him. He's basically protecting Ayanokoji. They brought him here in the first place to protect him from his father in the White Room. So as long as he's here, like I said previously in the video, they can't really do much to him. This is his one safe place right now, and the director is trying to save him no matter what. Now his father at that can't really say much, so he gets up and says that I'll leave him in your care for now, but only this once. You'll do well to remember that, basically threatening him. And trust me, we have not seen the last of his father whatsoever as he leaves. And it's here after his father leaves that Ayanokoji turns to him and says, you know, there's a student in class 1A, and his father, or the chairman, I should say, cuts him off and says, oh, you mean Arisu? That's my daughter. I don't give her any special treatment or anything. I treat all the students fairly and equally. And Ayanokoji in this moment is thinking to himself, like, is there a way that I can use this man to my advantage? That's what he was thinking to himself. And he even asked him about the White Room because the chairman knows about the White Room. And he says, while you're here, I don't want you to worry about that. I want you to just be a regular student and to enjoy your time here. And that's how their conversation ends for now. And it's here as he's leaving the conference room that he meets up with Chibashira-sensei again. And she's trying to feel out the situation to see what happened. And Ayanokoji, he's done. He's done with her. He says, don't try to feel me out. I know you lied to me. Because if you remember, she was blackmailing him this entire time to try to make him to reach Class A. Because she wanted him to do it. He wanted no intention, no part of doing that, but she's been blackmailing him this entire time to do that with the threat of getting his father involved here. But now that his father's come on his own, he knows that she's been lying to him and that she really doesn't have any power over him whatsoever. Ayanokoji confronts her and says, you could never get me expelled, so I'm not going to do what you want me to do anymore. I'm done. I'm taking a step back from everything. And she says, so you're just going to stop going for Class A now, after all your classmates are finally working hard, getting unity with each other, and striving to be better. And he says, at the very least, I'm not going to get involved anymore. I'm going to take a back seat to things from now on. And it's here that we transition into a phone call with Kay. Now, as I've said previously that in my last video, that their phone calls have started to become much more frequent with each other. Much more common. She's come to expect them. She's come to enjoy them. And he's come to make quite a tough decision, actually. But before we get into that, they start talking about the previous events of the season. He starts asking her about, are those people still messing with you and all that? And she says no, of course. But then she asks him a question of, why don't you want to tell people how smart you really are, how incredible you really are? If you did, you'd probably be way more popular than Hirata. You might even become like a celebrity or something. And he tells her that I like to stay unnoticed. I like to work in the background. I don't like all the attention. And she says that that's a waste, which it kind of is a waste if you think about it. But then he brings up the real topic of why he called. And he apologizes to her, actually, saying that he's done some pretty terrible stuff to her, which he has, honestly. He's done some pretty bad stuff to her, manipulated her all this time. And he tells her that, I have no further need to work on Class D standing. I have no further use to reach for Class A. He tells her that he's going to lie low for a while now because his threat of Chibashira in the background threatening to expel him is gone. So now he doesn't have to do this anymore. And he tells her that this is going to be the last time he ends up contacting her, because he doesn't have a use anymore. He doesn't need to use her anymore. So he feels it's not worth contacting her anymore. And the second she hears that, she is completely dejected. But she doesn't quite know how she feels, though. It's very, like I said before in previous videos, it's a very complicated relationship. Like I said, she's come to expect these conversations. She's come to like them. And he's just suddenly cutting off all contact. He's already erased her contact information, all their previous messages, everything, and says that this is going to be the last time we talk with each other. Now, obviously, she doesn't want the conversations to stop, the interaction between them to stop, but she can't just outright say that. And he even says, like, our relationship was really built on, like, me using you in a way. You don't want to continue to be a pawn, do you? And she says, no, but like I said, it's a complicated relationship. And it's here that he cuts the call and the episode ends. Now, like I said, this episode was setting up a lot of stuff for the future. And this final scene sets up our, I guess you could say, big finale for our season. It's going to be quite a good couple episodes coming up, to say the least. But you guys let me know what you thought of this episode down below. The introduction of Ayanokoji's father, and the fact that we're learning more and more about the White Room. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on that down below. Where do you think this is going from here? Do you think this is the last time we're going to see him? Or do you think this is just the beginning? Let me know down below. But that'll be it for today's episode, guys, you know? It's been a pretty hectic day overall. Probably not my best review because it's kind of scattered all over the place, but hopefully this was clear and concise for you guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. So until next time, guys, hope you have a great day, week, month, and year. And until next time, deuces, and have a blessed day.